In May 2024, American President Donald Trump was found guilty of 34 criminal counts of fraud against him after actress Stormy Daniels alleged he had paid her off following a sexual encounter. 16 months on from the trial, and we are today joined by Stormy for an exclusive interview as she reflects on what has happened since, as well as her take on President Trump's state visit to the UK. This week it has been talked about around the world. Stormy, welcome back to Loose Women.
Thank you. Good morning, guys.
It's good to have you with us. Well, as I say, we're 16 months on from that trial. And of course, President Trump was convicted, but effectively there was no penalty. You had called for him to do jail time. Was it worth it, Stormy?
I don't know. You know, that answer for me changes every day. And a way, yes, it was worth it. I spoke my truth. I stood up for myself. That's an example that I wanted to not only set for my daughter, but for, women, victims. It doesn't have to be a female, obviously, of that sort of thing. But on the other side of that, no, it wasn't. I gave up such a large part of my life, my livelihood, my peace, my personal life, my privacy, and it seems like it was almost for nothing.
I mean, has that been restored, your peace, or are you still in a state of flux?
Still in a state of flux a little bit, I'm always looking over my shoulder, of course. I was effectively the only person that spoke out in a way that had real repercussions for him. And the odd thing, in case you guys haven't noticed, is that since the trial, which was, last May, 2 Mays ago, he hasn't really said my name or referenced me.
I wanted to ask you, Stormy, because obviously we spoke the last time you were here. You have had sort of some nasty incidences, some personal threats to your own safety. Given the recent assassination of Charlie Kirk, is it something that, has it kind of like up to the ante a bit now in terms of worrying about your safety? And anyone in the public eye?
There was a little bit of reprieve for me. I wasn't doing anything publicly. I had taken a break. It was, just the holidays and stuff like that last year. And so it had quieted down. But it is to the point now where, my job is out in the public. I do stand-up comedy. I'm a writer and director. I have some films that just came out. They're not adult, they're mainstream. One's called Decoy, one's called Wrecked, and they're accepted into some film festivals. So I have to go and make these public appearances. I won Best Female Director at the Los Angeles Indie Film Awards, and we decided not to go. And that was like such a big deal for me to get that. The first big mainstream movie that I wrote and directed, I should have been there to get that award. And just for personal safety and finances and things like that, we didn't go. And so, yes, it's still having this effect on my life. My whole life, what I wanted to do was be a writer and director. So I should be enjoying reaping the awards of that success. And I haven't been able to do that. And we've already discussed the financial part of that, obviously. But I'm about to have to go back out on the road and do public appearances and, comedy clubs and whatnot. And so that's always in the back of my mind. My husband Barrett and I were just talking about that, and you have two choices when it comes to that, hide, live in fear, or go out there and potentially have something happen to you. Either way, he wins, and so I have to go out and I have to do that.
So, Stormy, how does that feel with all the way that you're having to curtail your life? How did it feel to see Trump here with all the pomp and ceremony and...
Well, I mean, I've seen two sides of that. I've seen the protesting, which obviously I thought was kind of entertaining. But that brings up a whole new subject, a whole new topic, is how I feel like free speech across the planet has been, even in those countries such as the UK and the States, where it's been so celebrated. That's kind of what we were built on, free speech. For us, it's the First Amendment, as you know, and it just feels like it's being stifled. The recent firing of my friend Jimmy Kimmel is really terrifying. I felt like even what he said wasn't that bad compared to other things he said in the past, which were way more inflammatory. And I'm wondering if the same thing is going to sort of happen to me. I was shadow banned. I don't know how or why it happened, but last summer after I paid the bill, which brings up a whole another thing I wanted to tell you ladies, I paid that's nearly $700,000 in July, or July 30th to be exact, of 2024. And people all day, every day, I'm still getting threats. Pay Trump what you owe him. Pay your bill. It was paid well over a year ago, and no one seems to know. And why is that? Like, who and what is controlling what information is received by the public?
How did you feel, Stormy, about the fact that Donald Trump was re-elected as president? You know, this is his second term. You know, he is your president for the next 3.5 years at least. How did that feel for you?
It was, I mean, it was shocking. I was, you know, on air doing the morning show for England, and I just couldn't believe. It effectively means that the first president to be a felon is now sitting in office, and that's not a good look. You know what I mean? Just kind of, you know, the optics of that is not cool.
I wanted to ask you, Stormy, because I don't think any of us here have ever met Donald Trump, but you have. What makes him tick?
I don't know. I think if, you know, I know that he is a proud man. And you know, he has a large ego. He's a large personality. That's the politest way I can think of to say that. But keep in mind, you know, people ask me that question a lot, but people change a lot, and it's been over 20 years since I spent time with him and had conversations with him. And I've said this before, and I say it again: the person that I spoke to on the regular in, you know, 2006 and 7 is not the person that I see on television now. So I wish I knew. I don't know.
Mm. And what are you hoping to do next with your life? Like, are you hoping to put this all behind you and to move on fully? Do you think you ever will be able to?
I mean, of course, and I did to a degree. You know, the trials are all over, the court cases are done, but here I am still talking about it. It's going to always define me. Where I had spent the first, you know, part of my career, of my life, focused on being known as a writer and director, and not just in the adult film business. Like I said, I had moved on. Everything I do now is non-adult. The television show I host, and, you know, these movies I did that are doing well, the comedy shows, none of that has anything to do with the adult entertainment business. So I knew that I was always going to be in the shadow of that. It would be, you know, Stormy Daniels, adult film actress, or former adult film star, former adult director. And I have no issue with that. I am proud of the work that I did. I'm not ashamed of it. I never compromised, you know, what I was comfortable with doing. But now I've moved past that. But even overshadowing all the work I did in the adult business will always be Stormy Daniels from the Trump story. I'll never get out from behind that. And people think that that's all that I am worth and all that I have to offer. And they forget, you know, all of the other things. That's like any of you ladies. If anybody ever said, you know, such and such from Loose Women for the rest of your life, that was the only thing they ever said. I mean, what about you? What about being a mom? What about being a woman? What about all of the other things you guys have done in your career that you're proud of or excited? Or if you leave your show today and you go on to win an award in a movie or something, no one's ever going to talk about that.
Yeah.
It's just going to be what you were defined if they put you in this box and they won't let you get out of it.
Yeah, I suppose the different thing for us, Stormy, is that, you know, being a Loose Women is a pretty good experience, where you've been through a very punishing experience with the trial. Yes. And actually the story isn't over, because we know that Donald Trump is actually appealing his convictions against fraud. So maybe we will have cause to speak to you again in the future, and I hope you would come back and speak to us. Of course. Yeah. In the meantime, listen, we wish you all the very best. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, and I would love to come there in person again, but we know what happens.
You'd be more than welcome.
Yeah, love that.
Welcome. Okay, thank you. Stormy Daniels, everyone. And just for clarification there, the $700,000 that Stormy referred to that she had to pay were legal fees for another case of defamation she took against Donald Trump, but she lost that particular case. And just as you said it, I remembered I have met Donald Trump.
Wow.
Yeah, but I'll have to tell you about it another day.